Well, hello. What you see here is a BMW stock lock cylinder. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I bought the BMW top case for my new K1600. Unfortunately, the top case doesn't come with a cylinder, so you have to buy that separately, and it's about $35 here in Canada for that. There's two ways to go. You can buy the cylinder and kit where you key it yourself, or you have the shop key it for you, or you can buy a kit with a key that comes with its own key. I just bought the cylinder, and this particular key is off my bike. So what I was going to do is just show you. I have a little trick. I've done this before actually. I have a little trick for keying this baby. There's effectively, I think, 8 different slots here for tumblers. And each tumbler has 3 different settings or 3 different possibilities. So effectively you have 24 different combinations. So you could, if trial and error came out to its worst, you could actually try to key this 24 times before you got it right. I'm going to show you how to do it where usually you'll get it right the very first time. And it's a little trick that I learned a long time ago when I was keying Japanese bikes. So watch along, and I'll show you what to do. What you'll need to do this is, of course, the kit, your key. You will need your key. You'll need pen and paper and a set of tweezers for the little springs you're going to have to put in. Once, with the K1600 GT, which has changed a little bit from the old top box, once it's keyed with the key in it, you just insert it in the cylinder receiver in the top box, turn it a couple times, pull out the key, and you're done. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to do this, so stay tuned. Now, first things first is make sure you set yourself up in some clean area where if you happen to spill things outside your general workspace, you can retrieve them, because there's tiny, tiny little springs here. There's more than enough to do the job, but you just don't want to lose any of them. So what I've done is I've just gone up to my office here in my house, which happens to have a leather top on the desk, and I'm just going to spread everything out here. First things you should realize is that the bag that comes with the kit has what I call tumblers. There's a few special ones in there, but generally there's tumblers. And each one of these tumblers, if you look very, very closely at it, has a 1, a 2, or a 3 stamped on it. So what I want you to do is to set yourself 4 piles. 1 pile up away here of all the little springs, 1 pile for tumblers with number 1, 1 pile with tumblers number 2, and 1 pile with tumblers number 3. Then there'll be 2 special tumblers. Put those off to the side. Okay, so you see here I have my special tumbler, which is not a tumbler at all. It's actually a key stop. I have my little tumblers with number 1. I have my little tumblers with number 2. And I have my little tumblers with number 3 stamped on them. I have all the numbers facing up. And over here I have my pile of springs, which will roll away, so you got to be careful of those things. So now I'm ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cylinder and my key, and I'm going to place the key in the cylinder all the way, okay? Then I'm going to look on the top here, and here's a little trick. If you look down, and I'm going to zoom in here. Let's see. There we go. If you look along the tumbler here, you'll see, I'll use my tweezers here. There's slots, okay? And on this side, you'll see these almost like cylindrical drillings alongside of some slots. The other slots don't have any. Well, it doesn't take a second to flip them over and see the ones that have drillings on the top don't have drillings on the bottom. So they're what I will call top slots and bottom slots. So what I want you to do is to take your cylinder and hold it in such a fashion so that this number 1 slot has a drilling, okay? This number 1 slot does not take a tumbler. It takes that special spring stop I told you about earlier. But essentially, hold your cylinder so that this is number 1, this becomes slot number 2, this becomes slot number 3, this becomes slot number 4, etc., all the way to slot number 8, okay, at the top. So essentially slot number 1, 3, 5, and 7 have drillings on them. Okay? Slot number 2, 4, 6, and 8 have slots on the bottom. Okay? If you flip them over, you'll see that the second one up has a drilling, and so on. Okay? So, the way you want to hold this, and the work you want to do is at the top. You'll know you're looking at the top of the cylinder for the sake of my method by the drilling. Okay? And that drilling is where a spring will go. Okay? So, now that you have the key in the cylinder and you're holding it looking down at the top, what you want to do is with your pen, now you can see this pen here is one of these roller ball with a long nib, and that nib can reach down into these slots and mark on the key. And that's what you want to do, holding the key all the way in, is to take your pen and mark. So there's a line, there'll be 8 lines on the key. And you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. You're probably figuring it out now, my trick. If you don't have a pen like this, just use a sharp pencil that can reach down in there. Or some sort of sharp, if you have a little child's, sometimes markers have long felt tips on them, you can reach in there. So I'll do 2 things. First of all, mark top on here with a T. And next, put marks in each one of these slots that mark right down onto the edge of the key. So, as you can see here, hopefully that zooms in okay, I've marked and along the top of the key through the cylinder locks, and there's 8 marks along there. Mark number 1 corresponds to slot number 1 in the cylinder. Okay? Right there. Okay, you can see I put a T on there too on the cylinder to tell me that that's top. So mark number 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 all the way up. Now, the next thing you want to do is what we're going to do is we're going to align, there's the tumbler groove here on the side. We're going to align with these marks down the side each of the tumblers. And I'll show you how that goes next. Okay, what I've done here, and I'm holding them, and I'm going to try to rotate this back and forth underneath the light so you can see. If you look very closely, this tooth in the center of the ring, okay, that is what engages the grooves cut in the key. That's effectively that's the locking or the combination portion of the tumblers. Now, if you see, I've stacked all 3 tumblers, a 1, a 2, and a 3 on top of one another. And if I turn this a little bit, you can see the one closest to you has the tooth closest to the center of the cutout. Number 2 is a little farther up, and number 3 in the back there is stacked the farthest away from the center. So the logic here is the grooves cut in the key. Okay, the farther they are away from the center line of the key, the higher the number, we're going to have a corresponding tumbler, which is why we marked on the back of the key here. So what we're going to do is we're going to eyeball those lines down onto the cutout of the key, and we're going to say, by judgment, by using our eye, which one of those lines is going to correspond to a 1, a 2, or a 3, okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do to prepare to do this keying is we are going to mark down the 8 slots here, okay? So, first things first is we have to separate the top slots from the bottom slots. So, holding our cylinder, once again, although you looked at this before, slot number 1 is a top slot. Slot number 3, 5, and 7 are also top slots, okay? So let's mark that down. On the bottom of the tumbler, we have slots number 2, 4, 6, and 8. Okay, so mark those down. So firstly, we're going to look at which tumblers go in the top slots, then we're going to flip over the key technically, and look at which slots go in the bottom of the cylinder, which tumblers go in the bottom slots, okay? So here's how we do this. Now, taking our key, I'll flip this over here so we do this in proper chronological order. We have farthest from the plastic is mark number 1, which corresponds with slot number 1. 2, which is 2 on the bottom, that's a bottom one. 3, 5, 7, 9 are all the top ones, and 2, 4, 6, 8 are all the bottom ones. So let's do the top ones first. If we look at slot number 1, that's a given. That's a special slot. That there has a special tumbler. It's not really a tumbler, it's actually a key stop. So let's mark that down on our piece of paper here, that slot number 1 is key stop. Okay, so it doesn't get a 1, 2, or 3. However, slot number 3 is a proper tumbler location. So looking at number 3, what you do, because as I put this in, you'll see what I mean. There's the top. I put that in. We want to look on the, as the key's facing us here, we want to look on the left-hand side, okay, down this side of the key when I pull it out, for the cutout to correspond to this slot. So, slot number 3, because the spring side is also the same as the tooth side, and that's the spring cutout. So slot number 3, we're going to look at how far down does this cutout deviate, or how far does this cutout deviate from the center line of the key, okay? So if I roll this over, I look at 1, 2, 3. There's one of 3 locations now. It can be, that's about a 1, that's right down the middle. A slight deviation is a number 2, and an extreme deviation here, like this one or this one, will be a number 3, okay? So, we look here, 1, 2, 3. We have a medium deviation here, as you can see, right about 1, 2, 3, right about there, okay? That's a medium deviation. So that's going to be a number 2 in the tumbler. So in our number 3 slot, we're going to put a number 2 in there, okay? Now we go to location number 5. We're going to do all the top first, and we do the same thing. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, drag our pen over. Oh, that's an extreme one. That is a 3. Okay, see how far that is away from the center line? It pushes in quite far. We're going to do a 3. And I'm going to continue to do the top ones, and I'm going to flip them over and do the bottom ones. But let's do all the top ones here first, and I'll catch up with you here on the bottom ones. Now, for the bottom, the even numbers, the way this works is a little different. Same principle. We read our line, we go to spot number 2 here, but this, instead of reading the top of the cutout, we're going to read the bottom of the cutout, okay? This key is symmetrical, so you flip it over, you're going to do the same thing. And if you happen to have your key, doesn't matter which way the keys flip because they are symmetrical cuts. But they're symmetrical in the sense that the impression from one side of the key to the other is the same. The impression itself is not symmetrical, as you can see. So we want to read the bottom this time, okay? As opposed to the top of the cutout, we want to read the bottom of the cutout, okay? So, slot number 2, which is right there. We're going to roll that over and read the bottom. Slot number 2 is a number 2, right there, okay? You see that right there? And we're going to read along the bottom corresponding to these lines, okay? I'll catch up with you when I'm done that. Now, as you can see, I've marked them all down. I've put them all in the cylinder with the springs. I'm just putting the last one in here right now. And the way to test it is to, now some people say, look, an easier way to do it is to keep pulling the key in and out until you get something that's just right. And you can do it that way, but I've done it both ways, and I find this here much, much quicker. And as mentioned, the horn on the side of the tumbler here, wait till that zooms in here. That's what engages the spring, okay? Now this obviously is not one of the tumblers, this is a final key stop. But anyway, that kind of slides in. As you can see, I have the key. As you engage the key, as you get each one just right, engage the key a little bit further here, and that actually holds the tumblers in. Now this here one, you'll have to hold with your thumb because it doesn't have a bottom. It's not a ring, it's a U-shaped one. But as you can see, if you roll this around, all the tumblers are flush when the key's engaged, which is exactly what you want. When you pull the key out, I'm not going to because there's no surrounding surrounding plastic to hold these tumblers from flying out from the springs. The key's doing that job right now. But as they're all flush, that's what you want, and that works. So now what I'll do is I'll take this out to the bike, I'll slide it into the receiver on the lock, turn it once or twice, and it should work. Okay, so now, as you can see, as I hold this up, that final retainer right here on the end is sticking up, and the key isn't holding it in, so the only thing that's holding it in there right now is gravity. Now, with this top box, this retainer goes on the bottom, okay? So you hold it with your finger, flip this baby over, and put it right into the cylinder. Now, as you go and hold it in, you're going to need a little screwdriver here, just to keep that on the bottom from flying out until it just gets, quarter of an inch into the housing. So there it goes there. And typically you can just hold it. I'm going to pull that out just a bit, hold it in with my screwdriver, and it goes all the way in. Once that's in, it actually locks it and the key can come out, okay? As you can see. So you're in. You can turn that, test it, it's locked. Test it, and it's locked. Now, I'm just going to zoom this out just a touch to show you something. You can see in this capture here that I've taken this one panel off to do this work. You don't have to do it to put it in, but the reason I took it off is I wanted to show you how to take the cylinder out. If for some reason you got to get an old one out, or something went wrong with the install, I'm not sure. A common error is to install the the 7th tumbler. You only need 6 tumblers in a top box, but there's room for a 7th and an 8th. The 8th, of course, is a retainer, which I just showed you. But that 7th slot you keep empty on the top box. So if, for example, you by mistake put in that 7th tumbler, it's not going to work properly. It's going to turn too far and the key won't come out, or perhaps the whole cylinder won't stay in the housing. So to get it out, on the bottom here, this is the tab that pops out when you take the trunk off the bike. Well, there's a tiny little hole underneath, and if you use a little Allen key here, you can see I got one, you can actually slide it up into that hole, and it goes deep into the cylinder, and you can actually push and pull the cylinder out. You just jiggle it out. Now I'm not going to do it because what's going to happen is that retainer spring will fly out of my hand. But that's how you get it out. Now this tab doesn't play a role. It just has a hole drilled through it so you get into the housing here. Okay, it's on the bottom. Okay, it's not on the side. No need to take apart the trunk. No need to take anything other than this front panel off right here. Okay, this thing right here. No need to take anything else off to get that off. And like I said, if you're just installing, you don't even need to take this off. You can put the cylinder right in. Okay, you can see that works perfectly. Very good.